And now we are talking about, first of all, the latest news. Secondly, let's do something practical. That I think is a distinguishing feature. You have people who talk about what's the latest, and you have people who talk about some implementation that they do, but I combine both. Now, I want to do this. I'm going to the list of attendees and I'm clicking on allow to talk. And I always complain that really we should somehow automate and allow everybody to talk, but it works. No, we don't get too many people. We only have 24 participants here, and therefore clicking 24 times is not that hard. 24,000 would be harder. And you can all talk now. Yes. And why do I want you to talk? Well, first of all, here we are. We're kind of a webinar seminar. We're all friends. And secondly, it's because I will not hear, I will not see you, but I will hear. That's why. So if you chat, I may see it later, but if you want an immediate acknowledgement.
Hello, testing 1, 2, 3. Hello, everyone.
Perfect test. Test worked. Success.
Hi, this is Greg. It's the first time I've attended your series, so it's
okay.
of interest to me.
Very cool. Very happy that you are here. Okay.
So what's the general format? I see a list of links on the screen. Do you give some commentary to each one, or
let me give you the whole story. So first of all, that's the only link that you need. I'm taking that link and I'm putting here it on the chat for you. Here is the chat, and on the chat, I'm doing two things. First of all, everyone should be getting my messages, and you all should be able to talk to everybody. This is the link to our run file. So every time that we do something, I record it here. I also recorded it for the next week so that you know, you can look up what will be discussed next time. The format is, since I'm a trainer and I teach what I preach, and I also do sometimes implementations, then first of all, I'm interested in the news. They're here and I will discuss them. And secondly, I want to do something practical. Here, I will tell you very specifically what practical thing I want to do. And that will be a lab. So sometimes I do get to run it, sometimes to explain it. But in every case, I want to leave you with the specific instructions where you will be able to do something. And that's what you will be able to do. That's the lab. So I'll put it in here in the run file. And I will also put it on the chat by the time when we come to it. So I'm not leaving you dry. You can open the first link that I gave you and come to the second, but I'm not putting it in there, not to distract you. Okay, that's the format. So what we will do is cover some of the latest news, and I will give my reaction because, well, after all, why are you here? That's so that we can discuss. And first I give you my reaction, and then I will want yours. And then we will also do something practical. That's how I like to structure that. So first of all, and that we didn't discuss, it's maybe not the latest news. Look, it's April 20. And today is what? April 28th. So in the space of chat AI, ChatGPT and AI, whatever happens a week ago is probably ancient. That's dinosaur. But we have not covered it. That's why it's here. So Greg Brockman is the CEO of OpenAI company, and that is a TED Talk where he talks about what's coming up in GPT-5. It's interesting to see how he describes that like a child interested in what the toy will do, because that's their philosophy. OpenAI, that's their philosophy, is that there is no, using the office terminology, buy-in. They didn't ask anybody if that's okay to release it or no. And they have a justification why they think it's the right thing to do, because it's AI, they say. It's the new thing for humanity. And therefore, humanity should get like vaccinated against that. Everybody in the world, and he means the whole world, should learn about ChatGPT because it's a special animal. Now, quick explanation of why it's special, and that's a little bit of my take, is that you have many models published, but ChatGPT, it's not that it beats them all, it's that it is under constant development, and the development never stops. You never know what it will do tomorrow. And that's how everybody who shows that, everybody from OpenAI says, well, I don't know what it will do. I have not tried it, and it wouldn't help even if I tried. That's Greg Brockman. And the rest of the conversation, that's only if you ask the questions. Ilya Sutskever is, you probably know, but if not, he is a Russian-born. He left Russia at 4, must be with his parents, went to Israel. He was there for about 20 years, but for the PhD, he went to the Americas, or maybe in Canada. So he's kind of a citizen of the world and the leading brain behind this. The talk here is a talk at Stanford where they really grill him. They kind of, we're all friends here. So what will you tell to us when we'll ask you the major question? OpenAI started open. In 2015, it started as an attempt to control what the big corporations are doing with AI. And look, in 2018, Sam Altman made a for-profit branch of that, sold his soul to Microsoft, and it's the opposite of what it had to be. So I'll tell you briefly what Ilya answers. He says that you don't appreciate the structure of OpenAI, and the structure is that even $8 billion investor Microsoft only gets a temporary ownership of that until it is all paid up. And then it opens up again, a very unusual structure. If you're interested in how that's done, it's right here. You can watch it. Relatively more new news is Amazon Bedrock. That is Amazon response to the popularity of ChatGPT. You have OpenAI with ChatGPT and with Microsoft on one hand, in one corner, so to say. And you have Amazon Bedrock in another with, of course, Hugging Face. So rather than listening, you can listen to it, but I'm just saying, show us this Amazon Bedrock. Right here, and what it is giving you models the same as GPT, but that's questionable, but with the same goal, at least, to do all of those things. It's all of those models, so you can choose any model and start integrating that model into your applications.
With the Anthropic model, does it give you access to some of the rules that are used for the constitutional AI? Like there's guideline rules in their Anthropic paper on trying to guide it. Like when you do the training of ChatGPT 4 in Azure, you just get some neural net training, but no human reinforcement. I mean, reinforcement learning with human feedback, and there's no way to do training on to add your own kind of rules as far as ethics or behavior. If you're trying to develop an enterprise app, you want to have certain limitations and constraints for a narrow subject domain. And so, but part of the Anthropic paper it was talking about constitutional AI and different rules. So I just didn't know on the Amazon if it gave you what access for training or transfer learning kind of parameters. Is that anything you're familiar with?
Question, Greg. And for the audience, let me very quickly explain what we're talking to. The major advantage of ChatGPT 4 compared to 3 and on is that it was first trained like the regular models are trained like all others. Plus, then you add a human in the loop. They have another fancy name for that, but it is a whole big layer provided by humans. And the question Greg asked is, can I add this training? Because when you download any of the models, any of these or the ones that we will be talking about, you get access to additional data. You can model, you can fine tune this model if it is available to you, which is not the case with GPT. But if it is available, you can add more data and train some more. And that's the whole rage today. Everybody's into training and fine-tuning your model. But the question is here, and usually that's not available. Usually you can only add data, but you cannot add additional human interaction. And if you can, there is no place to save it because the paper is published. You know how to do this human, but how to save it in the model, it's unclear. So I would expect, I don't know, Greg, that's a great question. I would expect that it is not available here either. I'm glad if I'm wrong. I'm glad if you're pointing this out. But I think my personal take is that ChatGPT is a living organism. It's being trained all the time. And tomorrow it's not the same as it used to be yesterday. And the speeches from all the founders of OpenAI make it very clear. That is really their advantage. It may change, anything may change tomorrow in this area, but so far that's what it is. Therefore, in the real life, I think that the good approach is like the one that is taken by Microsoft, where they combine two things. If you have ChatGPT, this is great, but don't try to make it what it cannot do. It's a wonderful model, and you take that as one partner. You also need a source or a place for your private information. And that is, in Microsoft case, that is a search engine. Now they use a modern popular, what's called vector search approach. It's one name for that, which maps not the keywords into your queries, but the embeddings of these keywords. In other words, it converts the words to the vectors representing a meaning, and then you search on the meaning. So that's an additional search component. And therefore you have two components. There are lots of talks on the YouTube, how people want to talk to multiple PDF about their specific problems with ChatGPT. And it's doable. Usually the approach is to add a search engine. So Microsoft showed an example of how they do it with their search engine. And you can do it with your own. And the most popular nowadays is Pinecone. So I just found out about Pinecone from exactly a talk like this, but now I see that it's also taken the world by storm. Greg, was that your question?
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft has a cognitive search. It's like a Word2Vec, where Word2Vec might be an embedding of 256 vectors. And the cognitive search is 12,000 dimensional embedding vector. And so they'll use Pinecone as a vector database to do fast lookup as part of their architecture. So that would be, instead of Word2Vec indexing words then the cognitive search is more at the paragraph level.
Mhm. Yes,
Um,
we all agree on that. Your real question was Anthropic rules, and my
Yeah, my-
expectations is no, but
Yeah.
you will tell us.
Yeah, I
Okay.
would like to have access to at least be able to give the own incremental training on the reinforcement learning with human feedback with some of our own answers and priorities, particularly
Mhm.
to have train a system to identify where it degrades. So if we're building an enterprise app and you ask it a question, I wanted to say, I'm not very sure. You can do that somewhat prompt engineering, but I'd also like to train the model with some of the reinforcement learning with human feedback, giving it sample examples with good answers, poor answers, and on the poor answers, identify where it's regions of a weaker accuracy and self-reporting that. So end users of an enterprise app don't take it blindly as an accurate, correct answer. Because we've seen examples, if an attorney asks ChatGPT about legal case law, it can return with made-up cases that I don't know if it's from a John Grisham novel or something like that. So,
Right.
and,
Well,
and it,
all
but
these
it
questions are
returns it with full
extremely
confidence.
interesting and important, and that's what I'm working on all the time. So maybe I'll describe what I'm working on, and maybe we'll go on that branch of discussion. But right now, I'll continue with the
Sure.
explanation of what is latest. And by the way, I have a chat from Michael Yampol. Now, there are some big names advocating a 6 months delay. Yes, totally true. There are some big named people. There are also other groups of people, just the opposite, who say that would be not a good idea. And so now there is one against the other. And then there was an idea, no, not just 6 months delay, but stop it completely. Again, my personal opinion is that the people who are on the let's continue are the ones who are mostly implementing it. The people on the let's pause, none of them struck me as the one who is doing anything right now. And regardless of who is right, those people who are just doing it, they keep just doing it. And with the 8 billion from Microsoft, it's very hard to stop OpenAI, even if you think that they should be stopped. Practically, it's very hard. That is what you will get from these talks, from the CEO Greg Brockman and Ilya Sutskever, and of course, the other CEO is who is that? Sam Altman. Okay, so Amazon joins the fray with many other models, and many other people bring their models. For example, Bloom is one of the models that's very much promoted by Hugging Face. It's part of the alliance with other companies to develop something that would beat ChatGPT. Again, so far, I don't think anybody can beat it. Now, Lawrence, you say Congress probably have to enact a law to stop it. Yes, you would have to be kind of police comes and says stop it. Now, does it really happen or no? Well, we can't ask ChatGPT because it will say I'm just a lowly model. So
Yeah.
that's a great question.
Very difficult with innovation and technology, creativity, the human spirit. You know, if you go back with the internet, the same thing with the internet, and continue on with other technologies as well. So the law is
Yes,
always
right.
last to catch up.
Yeah, so it's a discussion that is very interesting. But practically, I feel that it will not be stopped, whether it's right or wrong. But those people at the helm at OpenAI, their philosophy is exactly that. Yes, we took a decision to hit the world in the face with this technology, and you have to get used to that today, better than you face something harder tomorrow. That's their answer, and hard to stop them. Now, Bloom is one of the models, and the links I give are the usually implementation links. You can try to follow what they do. Wonderful, but not easy to follow. Now, we as a team, we took this course, Fourth Brain, this one. I think this one. No, that's just a repository. But there is a Fourth Brain course. They run it about every 3 months. It's on built-in generative apps. And that's where they show how to do Bloom. Now, we paid money. We were there, and that's because I wanted us to become more self-assured, and I think we achieved that. So Dolly is the same idea. Everybody brings something that they like, and Databricks is a strong competitor. They brought in Dolly model. Almost every such model is either, look, we did such great thing as a researcher, or it is a proof of concept, but we don't stand any chance against ChatGPT. So now it depends. If your goal is to just do simple sentiment analysis, then almost any model will work, and all these models are open source. Now, if you are not constrained by paying to ChatGPT, and you're building some real product and you feel that ChatGPT will not be outlawed and you can build on it, and then of course you just build with ChatGPT and you don't pay much attention to the models, the open models, because they have many problems. It's research, it's not proven, it's not trained with the humans after that, and so on. So I think it's still very clear, no big quandary. If you have the money and built-in for pay product, you can use ChatGPT. Now, these are all about how you can do it. For example, ChatGPT with your own PDF files. There is a open source project so that you don't have to use Microsoft. Okay, Microsoft does it with their own semantic search, but you can do it with your own. Pinecone is one of the possible competitors. The LangChain can give you a tool how to put it together. So it's there. There is a Hugging Chat that somebody else putting out. I think it's Hugging Face putting out their own chat. All right, everybody is putting their own chat. And finally, something more practical that I want to give you is we went ahead and we took the OpenAI documentation, which right away I can tell you is always insufficient. They are a great company with a great product, but what kind of intern is writing their documentation, I don't know. So therefore, it took us quite a few hours to convert their documentation into the lab, but we did it. So that is a lab, and I really should close it because I think it's a valuable thing. But on the other hand, at least one explanation is that I'm lazy to go and close. So it is open, and that's what I want to look at next. But first, I want to look at the chat. So, Michael, it's disturbing that the big firms eliminated their teams working on the topics like fairness, protecting against bias, etc. Like Google firing Timnid Gebro, I think I remember when that happened, and Mitchell a couple years ago. With the dramatic rise in advanced AI capabilities, one should think that such individuals would be more important to ensuring that the company and the product don't do evil. I would totally agree. I do not necessarily agree that it should be stopped. I have to reveal my position on that. But I agree that it is disturbing. Now, OpenAI is partially responsible for that too, because they, as one person put, they put everybody in higher gear. Facebook has to fight against them. So there is no time to look for fairness. Google has to fight against them, or else a terrible thing will happen. Everybody will go to Microsoft for search with Bing, and you can imagine how it will dry out Google advertisement paid, and they are almost completely relying on that. So there is no time for them to think also. They have to come up with the product and deal with all the fairness later. So I think I made your question even stronger. The situation is even worse than it seemed. But at the same time, my feeling that being that it is unstoppable, what do we do with that? Now, ChatGPT to be self-documented. That's a good improvement. We can send it to the OpenAI people. And there are ways how ChatGPT should fight kind of against itself. First of all, there is a tremendous concern in colleges and schools, and I have a personal friend, she teaches, and her students, she says, plagiarize and use ChatGPT. So she wants to win. Now, mostly importantly, when she asks a question, does that ChatGPT detector give me the real answer? The most important, no. You are against really very intelligent system, and you think that little startup that convinced your school to buy in will be better than it? No way. But if you want to win in that particular argument, you might get ready for the change that's coming, and the solution is you change the way you teach. That's also all what I'm saying is there are bigger conversations to follow. So I'm reading the key will be there, how it is deployed, who is allowed, and all of that. That's correct if you're able to control it. And we're talking about whether that will happen, whether it is important. Now, in addition to whether it is important or not, when you ask people, they will all say that they think it is important. For example, they ask Ilya Sutskever, is moral a concern? And of course, what else can he answer? He answers, yes, it is a big concern. But practically, no. So there are all interesting comments. I think what I will do, I will copy this all conversations and I will put them in here, just as in our conversations on the here. We talked about quantum computing, right? This is the day of webinars. So we just spoke about this, and in the end, somebody asked a good question about quantum computing, and we went to ChatGPT, where else, to give us the good answer, which was good enough to start our discussion. And that came out of that discussion. So here too, what I'm planning to do is that is a good discussion with many different points of view, and I'll put it here, maybe on a separate page, but with a link that's what we discussed. And therefore, everybody who is interested in his own arguments and also in the arguments of the opposing side will be able to do it. Why do I mention the arguments of the opposing side? It's because that's really a good, recommended, if hard to take approach. Learn about the logic of the other side. Say they're not stupid. What did they mean when they advanced this argument? Don't just dismiss it because that's too dangerous. You underestimate your enemy. So learn your enemy's position, but that is again philosophy, and it's enough to state that. How can we have that Google Doc shared with us? Okay, the Google document is right here, and that is a permanent link that stays here all the time. So this is our, what I call run, the webinar run. So every piece of information will be here. Okay. Now, I promise that we will do something practical And I will show you this lab. Now, I will honestly tell you the story of this lab. Let's read me. It goes back here. That is the document, the documentation by OpenAPI that talks about fine-tuning. So I want to open it in another tab right here. And this is where you see it. But as I mentioned, their documentation is either yes or no, purposefully or by mistake incomplete. So when you come here, then you have very vague instructions. Now it starts good, but then it says, and now prepare your data. So this data has the form of, here's the prompt, and here is the answer. That's what I want to tell you, ChatGPT. When you get this prompt, answer that. First of all, it's very limited, right? Even if the documentation is correct, and even if you complete it, which we did, it is a very limited training. We assume that if somebody comes with a similar prompt, it will still get the same answer. We assume that, but there is no documentation. How similar should the prompt be when it veers off the script? Not documented. Our experiments didn't give any good quality, but on the other hand, here it only talks about ChatGPT 3, which by now is an ancient, outdated, incomplete, imperfect model. I think somewhere I saw it that you can get to GPT 3.5. Microsoft already announced that you can get to ChatGPT 4 from their interface. So you can expect that if you learn the basics of how to do it, that will help you, because later on, you'll just change the model. So that's the document that we took, but then it takes this approach. Basically, it's clear. You set up your access, you prepare the training data in the format of prompt, answer, and you leave aside all the possible questions about does it work? Which leads me to say that it's very limited amount of fine-tuning, and I still believe that kind of leave the model as is and combine it with a real search engine. But that all is very hotly discussed approach discussion. And you can, it's like digging for gold, and everybody is digging for gold. Let's continue with this. So it says you prepare the data, then you use the CLI data preparation tool, and then you create the model. So exactly what does the model do? It is supposedly working better than the original. Well, in our experience, maybe it didn't work, maybe it doesn't matter. You will fix it, we will fix it. But that model, which is better than the original, you give it a name, and that name is being used to save it in OpenAI platform. So I'm probably logged into that platform here. So I can look at all the work that we've done, all the models that we have created. That will be all here. And here is the playground. So when that have worked, you go to the playground. And here in the playground, you'll see your models. Here they are. So that's all the standard models that you start with. And you can always, let's say, train the DaVinci model more, and it will appear as one of the models here. And go back to DaVinci itself and see how good you did. But at least that's a very clear path of how to work. Here are all the models that we did in the course. Now that's private, right? Because it's in my account. That's where you can add your team. And for the class, I added my team. And now let's go back. So what we did is essentially took the guidelines and implemented this. We added a few more things. We said we prepared the data sets using ChatGPT itself. Just this morning, I was going somewhere in the shuttle, and right away, the driver says, "Oh, I'm taking a course in programming. I use ChatGPT, of course, yes." And then he even missed my home because we were talking very hotly about ChatGPT and using ChatGPT to generate your code. And that's exactly what we did here. We generated the data. When it says prepare the data, it doesn't give the instructions on how you would prepare the data. That's what we did here. We prepared. And since models don't repeat themselves, every time you talk to them, you might get a different answer. And in the class, some people got different answers, might be even different structure. We save that. So they are all the data presented here. And that's the data sets that we generated and used. So to do your lab with success, I would recommend first use the data that we generated. Okay, so then we follow the instructions, we generate the data and massage it, only then it works. It's very important to be very precise. So you're used to ChatGPT, which is very lenient on what it does. Maybe it won't quite listen to you if you don't do it right, but it will do something reasonable. Now that will just crash. So you have to be very precise on that. And we generated both the code to generate data and the results. We stored it all here. So in the end, you run it, you train it, and you also try it. You go with this model to the place where you try it, and that's the playground right here. Okay. With a various level of success, but that's normal because we're now real doing development. The latest, greatest things that I can bring to you is, first of all, Andrew Ng just announced a course, which I started, and I have to say I really love it, except that I cannot log in, right? Let's try to do it. No, not with this, but with continuous me, and we'll be good. Yes, that says that I'm taking that, which is a great course. I feel that it is from authority, you know, that will be good practices. So I don't want to praise it too much, but obvious advantages of going with somebody like this. And moreover, this course is free right now. I don't know how long and why, but that's what it is. That's one of the latest news. And you probably will appreciate if I give you the link. So the link is right here. I can say this is new news. And I'm obsessive compulsive about formatting, but I'll have to do it later. Newest news. It's this course. And I think that is what I wanted to say about the latest news, and think of anything else. So therefore, let me go back to the chat here and see if there was more discussion. And yes, I see that Lawrence is giving us the proposed training bill. So let's open that. Of course, I would need to ask ChatGPT what it thinks about that. But one thing that I forgot to mention is that here in this TED talk, Greg Brockman talks about version 5. What will be in version 5? And one of the new things is this: the version 5 will have access to tools. For example, ChatGPT doesn't do arithmetics very well. It treats arithmetics as philosophy. So you can convince it that 2 + 2 is 5. It's harder. Today, it's learned to pull back. The people taught it to push back. For example, when it teaches students and the student says, let us assume 2 + 2 is 5, it will today say, yes, if you're thinking about philosophy, not about the hard fact, then I can agree. And in fact, he quotes from Orwell, and he says, if you are in this futuristic science fiction of Orwell, then 2 + 2 is 5. But now it learned to use the tools, so it will whip up a calculator and prove you wrong. It will also do research for you. For example, you can say, well, go here and verify the facts and look it up on the internet. It can do that. Other tools are also available. And I'm not even talking about plugins. Plugins is a separate story. I'm not very familiar with them yet. But the version 5, which is coming according to Greg in a few months, which could be sooner, because if anything, they do things faster than they promise. So that is the new thing, and keep it in mind. For example, if you say it is known to make mistakes in arithmetics, very soon it will whip out a calculator. That I found very interesting, and as a friendly chat, we can talk about examples and philosophy and the level of philosophy that the founders of OpenAI exhibit, but that's only as a friendly chat sometime else. Now, there is research is behind doing the steps, and that is very interesting. I need to read it. But here I see one example of hallucinations. It is still perhaps doing hallucinating. You may be convinced it. You can convince it that some wrong facts are really right. But I wouldn't concentrate much on that because they will fix it. Just as a prompt engineering started as a profession that's bringing you 350,000 a year. And I think by now, yes, it is important. Yes, it is a term, but it's not a great profession by itself. It's just how do you talk to it? And plus it changes all the time. What if it fixes that? And what if it understands you better? Then maybe prompt engineering is less important. That is the last piece of news that I wanted to mention. Wolfram sounds interesting. Yes, it does. And you see that I intentionally don't want to get involved in any argument or take any side because, well, because I'm Jewish. And as a Jew, I want to be, to see all points of view. That's the Talmud approach. So my secret is there. And the Talmud sees all the points of view, discusses them all, says all of them are true. And maybe we can find a good compromise right here, right now in this physical world. Okay, I see everybody already left their comments. That's great, thank you. And I promise that I will update that. That will be the result of what we talked about and mostly what we came up with now that we talked about this. So you'll have that, you can come back, you will get a recording of what we spoke about. You will also get that link that will, the link to the whole run file, which will feature all that we discussed, your comments, and now I stop sharing and wait for questions maybe. Well, thank you very much. You gave me a lot of materials to read and learn. That's wonderful. And I wish everybody a good weekend and all of the best. So thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, you're very welcome. All closing the screen now.